Welcome back to the Plumsail Forms for SharePoint tutorial. If you are new here, check out Plumsail's other video tutorials to catch up. And today we're exploring dialogs, a powerful way to enhance your forms. You can use dialogs to open other forms, confirm actions, display warnings or validation messages, and provide additional information or guidance. In this tutorial, we dive into how to create and manage dialogs in your forms with JavaScript. Let's get started. Plumsail Forms provides the global dialog variable, which includes the following methods. This function opens a dialog box and it can display a SharePoint page, a form, or even custom HTML. You can also use it to send data to the dialog, control how the dialog window looks, and set up a function to run once the dialog is closed. This one retrieves data passed to the dialog. It can be used, for instance, to populate a form opened in a dialog. This function closes the dialog and it can also send data back after the dialog is closed. Let's see how it works. So here is my parent form. Go to JavaScript editor and I define dialog globally with window.dialog equal dialog to make it accessible from the browser console. And I do the same for FD and save the form for all form types at once. Alright, so let's open up the form and then call the function to open the dialog. You can open any SharePoint page in a dialog. Let's start with something simple and open this dummy page. Copy the page URL and use it as a string argument for the open method. Remember to wrap the URL in single quotes to create a valid string. So I press enter and there we go, the page opens in a dialog. The form is also a page, by the way, and here is the form I will pop up in a dialog. To build a link to a form, follow the pattern. You'll find it in the article Generate a link to SharePoint form. I'll add the link in the description. The structure of a form URL is quite simple. You can construct it manually or programmatically. Here is the code example. Let's start by identifying the site path. In my case, the form is on a subsite and everything before lists, that's our path. Copy and paste inside single quotes. Okay, next we need this part of the URL starting from layout to page type. Copy that and I add it to the site path. So next, depending on the page type you want to open, you need to specify the corresponding number. I need to open a new form, so the page type is 8. Alright. So the next thing we need is the list ID. To find your list ID, go to List Settings, and then if you look in the URL of that page, you'll find the ID. Copy and paste. If you open an edit or a display form, you need to specify the item ID parameter as well. But for the new form, we don't need it. Done. This is the URL for my form. Enter, and new form of the child list opens in the dialog. Okay, so now that we know how to open the form in the dialog, let's learn how to send data over to it. We do that using arguments, which is the second parameter of the open function. This can be used to pre-populate fields or customize the dialog's behavior, for example in form routing. The arguments parameter is an object, which means we need to create key value pairs. The key is going to be the name of your argument, and the value is the data you want to send over. So I'm going to create two pairs, one with a string value and the other with an integer value. So text will be "We come in peace." Number 42. Press enter. The dialog opens and now we can grab those values using the getArguments method and the corresponding key. I'll log both values to a browser console. So first text and number. Next, let's use that data we passed to fill out the form inside the dialog. Open the child form in the designer and go to JavaScript editor. I'll copy the code from the documentation. The code is within the SP_rendered event, which fires after the form has been rendered. To avoid any errors if a form isn't in a dialog, we had this condition. It basically checks if the form is in a dialog or not. All the arguments are stored in this constant here, and I only need to specify the fields I want to populate. I need internal name of a field, update the key to text, and I need internal name of a number field, and key is number. That's it. Save a form and let's test. So now when I run this code, the new form opens in a dialog. And you can see that the text and number fields are now populated with the data we sent over using the open function. You can also send data from the main form to the dialog. I will now update the code to pass the values of the text and number fields to the dialog. So first is text and number. Now when I open the dialog, it is already have the data from the main form. Here is it. Another way to populate the form in a dialog is to retrieve data directly from the parent form, eliminating the need to pass arguments to the dialog. You first need to make a global variable on the parent form. I've already done that, but don't forget to do that before testing. Next, in the child form, I declare a variable to store data from the main form with window.parent.fd. Then I add a conditional check to see if data is available from the parent form. Within the conditional block, I write the code to populate the child form's fields. So it will be text, number, and person fields, I need internal name, and from the parent form, okay. I remove the code that we don't need anymore and save the form. Let's open the dialog without an arguments list and see what happens. As you see, the form is pre-filled with values from the main form. The open dialog function also has a callback parameter that executes specific code when certain events occur, such as the dialog closing or a button within the dialog being clicked. Let's see how it works. Instead of arguments, I type null, since we don't need them right now. Then I'm going to write a function that shows an alert telling us if the dialog was closed without saving or if the form inside it was actually saved. The result is a Boolean value, true if the form in the dialog was saved, and false otherwise. So if the result is true, we will see the alert with the text form in the dialog was saved and closed. Else, alert with the text dialog was closed without saving. Okay, done. Let's test. And I close the form. And we see dialog was closed without saving message. Let's open the dialog again using the same code. And now I'll save the form. And now we see form in the dialog was saved and closed. Alright, so now let's make this callback function send data back from the child form to the parent. I need the dialog close method for that, so I copy the code and paste it to the child form. The SP saved event fires after the form is saved. Just like before, we have a conditional statement to ensure this code only runs when the form is opened within the dialog. Now the dialog close method. It takes two arguments. A boolean value indicating whether the form was saved, true in this case, and the data we want to return as an object. In this case, we are sending back the ID of the newly created item. Save the form. And let's update the dialog code to display the ID in the alert. I add the args parameter and update the alert message. New item ID and args.id. And open the form and click Save. And here we see the item ID. Moving on, similar to how we can pass individual field values to the dialog when we open it, we can also send data back from the child form to the parent form after saving it. You can create key value pairs as we did before, or pass all data at once using the data method. It gets all the data from all the fields on the form at once, and we can send all the data from the child form back to the parent form in one go. This is more efficient if you have a lot of data to send back. Let's update the code. First, I don't want the form to be pre-filled when it opens, so I'm going to remove the code that's inside the SP rendered event. Next, we need to use the SP before save event that fires right before the form is saved. I declare a variable, and inside the SP before save function, I set a variable to store all the form data. In the dialog close method, instead of passing the ID directly, we'll replace it with the variable. And save the form. Okay, so now I'm going to update the code so that when the dialog is saved and closed, the parent forms fields get filled in with the data from the dialog. First, I need the internal names of the fields from the child form. I need it for text. Okay, number. I need internal name of a number field. And person field. Okay, done. Now let's test it out. I'm going to fill in the dialog form with some dummy data. Let's put hello world in the text field, 99 in the number, and select Adele in the person field. Okay, and now I'll save the form. And here we go. You can see that the main form now has the same values, hello world, 99, and Adele. One additional parameter available for the dialog open method is options. It is an object that lets you define the size and title of the dialog window. If you only care about setting the size and title and don't need to pass any arguments or a callback function to the dialog, you can simply pass null. And I define a custom size of a dialog window and also set a custom title to I am dialog. And execute. And you can always just resize the dialog by dragging the edges like this. Besides opening SharePoint pages and forms, you can also use the dialog to show your own custom HTML. You do that with the template parameter. This is perfect for things like confirmation windows or just showing some extra info. Let's start with a simple example. I'll display a message, so I'll write template to be or not to be. That is the question. And we'll change the size of a dialog. So be 300. Okay, so this is what the dialog with our custom HTML looks like. Pretty simple. Now let's add some buttons to our dialog. I'm just going to copy the template from the code example. All right, let's update the text to "Are you sure?" And let's change the button text to. Let's make it the yes and no. Now I want to actually do something when these buttons are clicked. I'm going to copy the code for that from the documentation again. And I'll add it right after the title parameter. And I want then the yes button is clicked to set the text field on the parent form to yes. And then the no button is clicked to set it to no. Just update field names here. All right, time to test it. So when I click yes, the field value has changed to yes. Let's open the dialog one more time. And now I will click no, and now it is no. This button approach can be used to confirm actions. For example, you might want to confirm saving changes. You can add a button that, when clicked, opens a confirmation dialog before actually saving and closing the form. Let's try it. I'll add a button to a form and add the function to its click property. I'll update the text to "Are you sure you want to save the item?" Change the title to "Confirm action." And when the yes button is clicked, I will save a form. And then the no button is clicked, it will close the dialog. Save the form, and let's test it. I'll change the number field's value and click the button. I click no. The main form remains open. Now I click the button again and select yes. The changes are now saved. And one more handy tip. If you are using list or library control in a dialog mode or adding a new item through a lookup field, a dialog window will pop up. You can define the size and title of the dialog window, and you can even add buttons for more interactions like minimize and maximize buttons. Okay, so I've configured the list or library control. I've set the mode to dialog, and now I'm going to show you how it works. And here is the form with our list or library control. I click new, and the dialog opens. Right now it's just a standard generic dialog window. Let's change that. Okay, I need the control. I need its internal name. Next, use the dialog options property to customize the dialog. I want to make the dialog bigger, so I'll define its size. And I also want to add actions to let users maximize and minimize the dialog. Okay. And I will change the title to "I am dialog of list or library control." Let's test. Now the dialog looks completely different. I can make it full screen and minimize it. And it has a custom title, and you can use exact same code for a lookup field or control. It works exactly the same. In this tutorial, we explored various aspects of working with dialogs in Plumsail Forms, including opening dialog with different content, passing data, and handling user interactions. We hope this information helps you create more engaging and user-friendly forms. You can find links to everything I mentioned in the description below. And if you get stuck or have any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the Plumsail community or contact Plumsail support team. See you in the next videos.